the Real Estate Insider, going inside the world of real estate to educate and demystify the home buying process. The first and last lesson before you start your home buying journey is do your homework.
Hello and welcome to the Real Estate Insider. My name is Denise and I'm a real estate agent here in the greater Nashville area and host of today's show. The mission of our show is to educate the public on the home buying process. Today we'll be going on an actual home inspection with a licensed home inspector. And we'll be doing a home inspection on this home. With me today will be Brent Scott, a licensed home inspector here in the greater Nashville area. With me today is a licensed home inspector, Brent Scott. He's a home inspector here in the greater Nashville area. Brent, would you like to say something about what we're going to do today?
Sure. Hello. Today we're going to do an inspection on this house for the home buyer. When you buy a home, it's really important to get a home inspection done on it. The inspector will be able to educate you about the home, the mechanicals of the home, and the home inspector will also be able to possibly find some issues that could protect you from financial cost and just for safety concerns, and that's what we're going to be doing today.
Sounds good. Well, let's get started.
All right.
Well, here we go, up on the roof.
So Denise, I typically start my inspection on the roof or with the roof, and there's several things we're looking for. I'm going to look at what type of roof it is, what type of material it is, try to give the home buyer a general condition of the shingles or of the roofing. And in this house it appears that the roof looks to be newer. Looks to be in pretty good shape. Looking for any granule loss. You want to make sure that the tabs of the shingles haven't lifted and that they're properly secured, that the seal is proper. You want to look at the flashings. I'm looking at the flashings on these plumbing vents. They're nice and tight. There's no splits, nothing on those that look like there could be any leaks or any moisture intrusion. And you want to check out the ventilation. In the south in particular, if a roof is not properly vented, it can prematurely age the shingles, especially an asphalt roof like this. And this house the roof on this is ventilated pretty well. They've got the gable vents I see on the edges, and then they've got the soffit vents along with the metal box vents. So looks like this roof's ventilated pretty well. And the inspector will also look at the guttering system. I've noticed on these gutters there's some debris and some seeds and leaves and stuff in it. And the section of the gutter cap is missing here. They'll need to get that put back on and clean out the gutter so that you have proper drainage and control the moisture properly so it doesn't fall directly at the house and weep its way into the foundation. So it looks like they're going to need to replace the gutter cap in this little area and clean the gutter so that they have the proper drainage. And those are just some of the issues the inspector will be looking at, or some of the items on the roof the inspector will be looking at and reporting back to the homeowner. Next thing we're going to look at is the heating and air system. It's very important that the home inspector inspects the unit. We will be testing the heating and air system when we move inside, but we're going to do a visual inspection of the outdoor unit. And one thing I'm noticing on this unit is that there's some damage on the coil fins. It's a little bit dirty, could probably use to be cleaned. And on the date on this unit this unit was manufactured in 1991. The life expectancy of this particular type of unit is around 10 to 15 years. So it is, it's probably approaching towards the end of its life. It's 2013 now, so, but we'll be testing it to see if it's operational. And based on the condition of it, it probably would not be a bad idea to have the unit serviced and maybe some minor repairs that need to be made. But based on the age and condition of the unit, it probably won't be very long that it'll need to be replaced. And that's something that I'll be educating the homeowners on.
And how would a homeowner know where to look to see how old the unit is?
The way that I determine the age of the unit is on the serial number.
Okay.
So Denise, the next thing we're going to do is test the water pressure. It's important to know what the water pressure is. If the water pressure is too low, it's non-functional. If it's too high, it can cause damage to the plumbing fixtures in the home. So around Middle Tennessee, it's not uncommon to find water pressure that's too high. Between 40 and 90 psi is what we're looking at, or what we're looking for to maintain the proper pressure. So I'm going to test the water pressure and see if they need to make any corrections. And the water pressure on this house this morning is roughly 80 psi, so that's a good pressure. It's not too high, not too low. So.
And what would happen if it was too high?
If it was too high, they could have a plumber install what's called a pressure reducing valve, which will basically regulate the pressure in the water pressure so it doesn't spike or up too high and cause damage to the plumbing fixtures. But this one's in good shape. So Denise, on the exterior of the home, there are several things the home inspector will be looking for. Some of the major things are the veneer. This house has a brick veneer, and I want to be looking at the condition of the brick, the condition of the mortar, make sure that there's no excessive cracking, no excessive holes in that. And on this house, it looks really good. I also want to look at any exterior wood trim or wood windows to make sure that the wood's in good shape, make sure the painting and caulking is good, so that you don't get damage from the elements, and also so you don't get moisture intrusion. This particular house has double pane windows that have been updated. These are not the original windows, and that's going to help the homeowner, the people buying the house, because that's going to help them on their energy cost. And those are some of the things that the home inspector can show you that you may not really know about or may not pay attention to. And that's not necessarily a problem. That's actually a positive thing. Another thing the home inspector will be watching for is drainage and proper moisture control, and they'll be looking at the grading of the yard to make sure that the yard or the backfill slopes away from the house, so that when it rains, that the water doesn't go into the foundation but will actually wash away. And this homeowner has put extender tubes on the downspout to even help divert that water further away from the home, which is typically a good thing.
You want to look for a slope on your brickwork?
On the windowsills, yes. It's important that the windowsill slopes away from the house too, and that's really a good point. And it's not uncommon to find windowsills that actually slope towards the house, and that can allow moisture to pour into the walls, and that can be a pretty extensive repair sometimes. But this looks good. It's got a pretty aggressive slope actually away from the windows, so it's good. It's really important that the earth or the backfill up against the foundation has got a proper slope, that it slopes away from the house, so that when it rains, when the water hits the dirt, that it falls away from the house, it rolls away from the house, not towards the foundation. It's very important to maintain proper drainage, to maintain a proper slope. Around Middle Tennessee in particular, moisture intrusion into basements and crawl spaces can be problematic. And one of the first places you start to try to control that is with the grading, and that's one of the more simple ways as well, so that make sure that the grading actually slopes away from the house. And this looks really good actually. They've got a good slope, and the homeowners put extender tubes to help that out a little bit. So this place in this area looks good. And when we move inside and when we get to the basement, we'll be looking for moisture intrusion and evidence of that. So
sounds good.
All right. So Denise, another thing the inspector will do is when they move inside the home is they're going to test the plumbing. They will run all of the plumbing fixtures. We're at the kitchen sink of this house. I'm going to run water in both basins. I'll probably fill up one of the basins and test the sprayer, and then we'll look under the sinks to look for leaks, and we'll also be inspecting the ventilation to make sure that they're vented properly and that everything's draining properly. So I'm going to go ahead and get the water started, and we'll be testing also for hot water. Make sure that the house has hot water. That can be important.
Oh, definitely. We want to buy a house that didn't have hot water.
It would make for a miserable shower.
Some of us run the hot water heater out every time they take one.
Yeah, I bet. We'll look at the hot water heater. We'll look at the water heater when we get to the basement. Yeah, these folks have hot water, so that's good. The next thing I'll do is look under the sink, and I'm looking for any leaks, any evidence of leaks, any damaged wood. Looking at the drain lines. This house looks like it's got some updated plumbing. I'm seeing newer type water lines. There's newer drain lines. And I'll also test. I see that this house has a garbage disposal, so I'll test the disposal to make sure that that's working properly. And it is. It's nice and quiet. Seems like it's running pretty well. It's good to run the sprayers. These tend to leak. That one's working.
That water looks hot.
Yeah, it's hot. And that looks good.
Okay.
So Denise, while you're running the water in the sink and even after you run the water and run the disposal, it's really important to look at the drain lines to make sure that there's nothing leaking. You want to make sure that the vents are properly installed. And this house has got some updated plumbing. The water supply lines are actually newer. They're a PEX type water line, and also the drain line appears to be PVC, which is newer than the home. So that looks like the plumbing has actually been updated, and everything in here looks really good. So Denise, another big component that the home inspector will be inspecting is the electrical system. And inside the home, where the living part of the house, one thing that we test is every accessible outlet. So I'm going to test this outlet to see that it's wired properly, and it is. My tester showed me that it's got the proper grounding, it's got the proper polarity, so that looks good. And that also tells me on this house that it's most likely been updated. With the age of this house, finding out outlets that are grounded tells me that the electrical system's been updated, so that's a good thing.
And what is that little device?
This is just an outlet tester. It tells me several things. It tells me about the grounding of the outlets. It tells me about the polarity of the outlets, and I can also test the ground fault circuit interrupters to make sure that they're operating properly. So
sounds good. Talking about it.
So Denise, as the home inspector is going through the house, they're testing doors, they're testing windows. They want to make sure that the doors line up and that the doors latch, and this one's in good shape. That's important for several reasons. You want your doors to operate properly, but it also kind of gives you an idea of how the house is moving and settling, if it's excessive stuff or if it's normal. So this one looks good, and we're going to move on inside to this bathroom, and we're going to test the shower, the tub, the toilet, and the sink. So Denise, as in the kitchen, as we ran the kitchen sink, we'll also run the bathroom sink. So make sure that there's no leaks at the faucets. Make sure that the hot's on the left side and that the cold's on the right side, as it should be. And then, just like we did at the kitchen sink, the inspector will look underneath the bathroom sink to make sure that there's no leaks, make sure that things are vented properly. Check out the water lines, and everything under here has been updated. Looks really good. So that's something I'll be showing the homeowner, reporting on the homeowner, that a lot of the plumbing systems, and most of the plumbing system has actually been updated. So as we're going through the interior of the home, bedrooms in particular, and living rooms and dining rooms, those areas, the inspector will be inspecting the windows, and there's several things they're looking for. They're looking at the windows, fit properly, that there's no gaps around that you can have heat loss and moisture intrusion. And it's also important that in each room with no exterior door, that there's an operable window that will open so that the people in the house can get out if they need be in case of emergency. So the inspector will operate the windows. With the tilt windows, we typically open those to make sure that they're connected properly, that each sash is correct. And this window's in good shape. And these are, like we said, outside, these are updated windows, so they'll be a little bit more efficient and typically easier to operate than the older wood windows.
Older homes seem to have bigger windows.
Yeah.
Well, here we are in the basement. Brent, what are we going to do now?
We're down here in the basement at the electrical panel, and one thing the inspector will do is remove the electrical panel faceplate so that they can see the bus bar and all the wires inside the panel, and that's what I'm about to do. I'm going to remove the faceplate, and then we'll inspect inside the panel.
Sounds good to me. Wow, look at all those wires.
All right, you need to edit this out, but I have to say this. Denise, this will kill you. Don't touch anything, okay? I know you know that, but I have to say that because you're kind of cool and I don't want you to die in my house. All right, so tell me when we're ready to go.
Roll.
All right. So in the electrical panel, there are several things that we're looking for. We want to make sure that the wires that go into each breaker are properly sized. Another thing we're looking for is to make sure that there's what's called no double taps, that there's not two wires going into one breaker. And then beyond that, there's just several things. We're basically just looking to make sure that the panel has been installed properly, that it's grounded properly, we've got the proper type bonding. And this panel actually looks pretty good. As we mentioned upstairs, it appears that a lot of the electrical in this house has actually been updated, which is good. And you know, that's another positive thing that the home inspector can tell the home buyer, that you know, your electrical is actually better than it was when the house was built several years ago. So
That's always a good thing.
that's always a good thing. That's right. So you know, Denise, a big part of the home inspection is, you know, the way that the home was built. You know, we look at, the home inspector will look at the flooring system, they'll look at the foundation walls if they're visible. And this house, this is an older home, and the foundation walls on this house are actually stone, which was common for the age of this house. Most houses in this area, the builders use cinder block on newer homes. And you know, we've gone through the basement, we looked at this house, the foundation walls are in good shape. You know, there's no excessive cracking, no excessive heaving. And no evidence of moisture coming in, which is good. The flooring system is typical for the age of this home. These are 2x10s on 16-inch centers, which actually would be, this would be the way that a newer home would be built, actually, with that type flooring system. And as we move over here, we can see that the original builder used steel post with this house actually has a steel beam running down the middle of it, which obviously has lasted a long time and will most likely last for a lot longer. So the foundation on this house looks pretty good.
That would make me feel safe.
So Denise, as we mentioned outside, you know, it's really important for the inspector to look at the moisture control of the house, the way that the backfill is sloped away from the home. And now we're in the basement, and one thing the inspector will be looking for is any moisture intrusion, standing water, any evidence of standing water in the past. And in this basement's actually very dry. It doesn't look like they've really had any moisture, you know, intrusion concerns. And I'm also noticing just the general condition and the general environment of the basement, that where there's exposed dirt, the homeowner or someone has put down a vapor barrier. And that's just a black plastic cover that will hold the condensation down and really makes for a better environment, and typically is recommended if an inspector inspects a home and there is no vapor barrier, they will typically recommend installing a vapor barrier. But this one looks good. It's nice and tight. It's put down very well, so it looks good.
Looks good. It's kind of wild to see all this interior stuff down here.
You know, another thing that the home inspector will look at is the water heater. They want to look at the overall condition of the water heater, what kind of fuel it uses. This is a gas water heater. They'll look at the size of the water heater. Look for any leaking or anything like that needs to be repaired. So this is another big component the home inspector will be looking at. In this home, Denise, the HVAC ducts are actually in the basement, which is common for them to be in the basement in the crawl space. And this is a component a lot of times the homeowner can't see. If it's in the crawl space, typically homeowners don't crawl their crawl spaces. In this house, we have the luxury of being able to stand in the basement, so we can see these very well and inspect them. And we want to make sure that they're insulated well, that they're in good shape, that they're properly strapped up. And I can see that someone's made some corrections and made some additions to the insulation and the taping on the insulation. So these ducts actually are in very good condition.
Now that we've finished the home inspection, let's talk about the next step, which is the report.
Yeah, so you know, the most important part really for the buyer anyway is the report. The buyer should expect a written report from the home inspector telling them the condition of the home, any issues they found that maybe need some to be addressed or to be corrected, and also just to detail the home. You know, the home inspection report will have a lot of details that can help the homeowner as they're living in the home to maintain it and you know, kind of tell them about the mechanicals and those kind of things. And also I wanted to mention that when you're getting a home inspection done on a house that you're buying, if the home buyer wants to be there, they can, and a lot of times that the home inspector can really help them learn a lot about the house, not just the problems and things that need to be addressed, but also the mechanicals, and we can show them where their electrical shutoffs are, where the water shutoffs, those kind of things. So it can be helpful for the home buyer to be there.
And I usually show up too, and I go over everything with the buyer afterwards.
That's right. It gives the real estate agent a good time to understand the house more and help the home buyer negotiate further if there are going to be any further negotiations on the purchase of the property.
Exactly. And usually the report, you don't even do the ending of it until after we go over the report.
Yep, exactly. So after the inspection is done, the inspector will typically then go home or to their office or in their vehicle, whatever, however they do it, and typically type up the report and then mail it or email it. Most inspectors now are emailing the reports directly to the buyer and to the agent if that's what the buyers want you to do. So.
That sounds good to me. And just to wrap up today, I'm Denise Connor, a real estate agent here in the greater Nashville area, and this is Brent Scott, a home inspector in the greater Nashville area.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Today's lesson can be found on page 12 of our Home Buyer's Guide with step-by-step instructions created for you by the panel of the Real Estate Insider. For today's lesson, we will be going over an inspection report. Now on the first page of an inspection report, it will be the cover letter. It'll have a picture of the property, it'll have the address of the property, inspection date, and who it was prepared by. The next page goes over some of the concerns that the inspector had with the home, like the exterior. Exterior continued. This will be with moisture problems, possibly foundation problems, cracks, different things like that the inspector has found. Next will be some concerns that were found with the HVAC system and the roof. Some concerns that he found with the attic. Some interior things that he found wrong with the home. And the last part of this report will be what he found in the crawl space. Your next page goes over again in detail about the property address, client information, and inspection conditions. Next page goes along right like we were today on our inspection with the exterior components, building exterior, driveway and sidewalks, and deck. Next we go to the roof with roof coverings, ventilations on the roof, gutters, and methods of inspections that were used on the roof. Attic components. Roof framing, insulation, ventilation, attic access. This is all covered on this page. Next page has to do with the crawl space, foundation, and structure. Conditions of crawl space, whether moisture was found, the flooring system. And this goes over floor joists, girders, support, wall studs, and floor. Next, we go over their electrical system, at the service entrance, where it's located, the main disconnect, main servicing panel. Next, we go over our plumbing, the water supply, and drain piping. Water heater is involved in this too. The heating and cooling system, we go over in detail about the heating and cooling system. That'll tell you what kind of furnace, if it's a heat pump, if it's gas, testing the cooling, and it'll give all the details on the tests that have been run on your HVAC system. Next, they go over the windows, the doors, and interiors, the window frames, what type, what type of interior doors, garage door openers, interior rooms, they'll go over the walls, the ceilings, and the floor coverings, kitchen appliances, and laundry appliances. And that is the end of our report for today, and that is the end of today's lesson. We hope you have enjoyed our informative program today and have a better understanding of the home inspection process. The panel of the Real Estate Insider has created a home buyer's guide with step-by-step instructions in a workbook format that is available for you on our website. Thanks today to Brent Scott, our home inspector, and your host, Denise Connor. Thank you for viewing our program, and remember, before you buy a home, do your homework.